Little disagreement on tax policy. We'll cover it tonight. Welcome into my state of mind. I am Dan York. Thank you for tuning in. The president will speak tonight. We'll talk about that. Gary Sasse will speak tonight here. The gentleman who runs the Leadership Institute at Bryant University will be my guest. He's no stranger to the broadcast. He got caught up in a little bit of a, journalistic fistfight with the Speaker of the House. You know, when one reporter calls somebody and says, "What do you think about this?" The other guy thinks this. Then the reporter calls somebody else and says, "Hey, what do you think about this?" He said this. It sometimes look journalistically like you got to fight. I don't think Gary Sasse has any interest in fighting with the Speaker of the House, although the Speaker of the House more or less suggested that Mr. Sasse hadn't really done anything constructive, my words, in the big debate. I beg to differ. This guy was the Department of Revenue head, the head of the Rhode Island Public Expenditure Council. He's a smart guy on policy and taxes, and he has some thoughts about, whether Social Security tax breaks and that kind of stuff really work for Rhode Island. We'll also get his thoughts on some of the contemporary news here in the state as we move along. How was that Vinny Paz show last night? How about that story about his mother? Was that too much? If you missed that, foxprovidence.com, where you can see every show that you have missed. You know where I was yesterday? I was in Bangor, Maine. That's the end of the world. There's more to Maine than that? Yeah, I looked at the map and said, what species are up there? It's cold. Anyway, so he says he is. We'll see tonight. Gone, gone, gone. What's it, Phil Phillips from American Idol? Gone, gone, gone. That's our Ed Commissioner. This is a whole hullabaloo about nothing, and I'm a Giant fan that would love to pick on you Patriots fans. Congratulations, by the way, one day late. And then that story, which kind of deflates the deflation story. And this is deflating to the community. God bless her. We lost Sister Ann, and your state of mind, of course, important to us always. So let us dig in and comment on a few of these things before we talk with Gary Sasse about things financial for all of us, starting with the rundown and this concept of more relax. CNN.com says that President Obama heads into the State of the Union tonight with a ratings uptick. I guess $2 gas certainly helps.
President Obama makes the short trip from 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue to Capitol Hill tonight to deliver his 6th State of the Union address.
More relaxed and a little better at it than I was the first time out.
The president has already used speeches across the country to unveil several new proposals, like free community college for students who keep their grades up.
The doors of higher education shouldn't be a Democratic issue or a Republican issue. This is an American issue.
And President Obama wants to pay for it and other plans to help the middle class with tax increases on the wealthy. Republicans will be pushing their own ideas for how to best help the middle class.
Middle class, middle class. Now all the reporters, all they do is talk about the middle class because Democrats talk about the middle class. Gina Raimondo, our governor, talks about the middle class, middle class, middle class. Let me ask you a question. While most of you watching are part of the middle class, do you walk around thinking about being part of the middle class? No. You're hoping to achieve the American dream in whatever way you can get it. And I just wonder how many times you want to be told that you're part of the middle class. And for those of you who are not part of the middle class in your mind, is that your goal, to achieve being in the middle class? This middle class politics is enough to lower the bar of, goal setting so low that we just kind of walk around comatose. I bet you the president will say middle class no less than 15 times tonight, and then the reporters and the gaggle afterwards will break that record. Incredible. By the way, Larry Merlo, the guy who runs CBS, will be sitting next to Mrs. Obama tonight, First Lady. That's kind of nice, tobacco out, Merlo in to the State of the Union address. CBS knocked out the cigarettes. So we'll talk about that tomorrow. Good for him. I hope they tell everybody he's from Woonsocket, or at least his company is. All right, next, this was a foregone conclusion. I've told you this a number of times that I don't know where she's going to be or how she's going to make it, but here's the headline on WPRI.com. Our Ed Commissioner, a finalist for the Tulsa Superintendency. Yeah, that would be Tulsa, Oklahoma. She's from there, I guess. Today she was able to confirm what had been reported in the Journal today with a statement. The Tulsa School Board confirmed this morning that I am a finalist for the position of superintendent of schools in my hometown. What else did she say? She said, I'm enthusiastic about where we are with the efforts, blah, blah, blah. and confident in the governor, blah, blah, blah. Met a lot with the governor, blah, blah, blah. Like the board, blah, blah, blah. But this was too exciting to forego, blah, blah, blah. Look, this is a real blow to the state of Rhode Island, I think. Deb Guest has been a change agent. She's had to throw it into reverse a couple of times because she wanted to politically survive the turmoil that exists when you try to change things for the better. A couple of things that she backed off on that I wasn't too happy about. One, the criteria for education majors and what they needed to achieve in college in order to be able to teach. She backed off on that standard after she introduced it. And then she backed off, not only did she back off, she more or less said, oh yeah, well how about this? I'll back off and double it. When the General Assembly did one of the worst things I've ever seen the General Assembly do last June, when they, or July, well, June, July, when they said, you know what, this whole requirement for the kneecap test, 1/3 of the necessary thing to accomplish in order to be able to graduate, all you had to do is kind of like show a pulse in that kneecap test if you were a high school senior, well, junior through senior year. Take it 3 times if you need to. Substitute waivers if you had to go seek them. Anyway, when the General Assembly nullified that whole thing, it really pulled the wool out from under her, the rug out from under her feet. And you know what? They postponed it to 2017. She doubled down and said, yeah, well, I'll postpone it to 2023. How's that? I'll give you another decade to figure it out. I mean, that was her message with a smile. She's out of here. Gina Raimondo, our governor, has made a deal of some kind to replace her. I'm absolutely certain. The tacit support that she got from the NEA and the AFT, the 2 teachers unions in the general election, are proof of that. She's got a 6-month window that needed to be addressed here in her contract negotiation. They haven't acted on that. She is, figuratively, of course, a dead person walking here. And it's too bad. It's too bad because we have allowed the bar to just get lower and lower and lower. We'll see how it goes, but clock's ticking. Whether it's Tulsa, Oklahoma, or Ish Kabib, she's gone. Deflategate, yeah, this is funny. This has actually become a real news conversation around southern New England, huh? The headline, yeah, a lot of people, listen, I'm a diehard Giant fan, some of you know that, and I'd love to rib you about this whole deflated football, but I just can't even muster the energy. Bill Belichick said he didn't even know what they were talking about.
You know, we'll cooperate fully with whatever, whatever the league wants us to, whatever questions they ask us, whatever they want us to do. I didn't know anything about it until this morning.
Yeah, he's pretty nonplussed about everything. Oh, really? Deflated football? Oh, really? Oh, I don't know. Do some research. A softer football is harder to throw. The harder it is, meaning the more air there is, the easier it is to throw it far. Ask Tom Brady. Whole big thing about nothing. That was a blowout, and I don't care if you played with a pancake. Indianapolis could not have won that football game. In the meantime, distracting everybody from the deflated football is this other Patriot story. Here's Eyewitness News account after the headline of Vince Wilfork and his heroic efforts.
It was a big night for Big Vince.
Always awesome, always.
Little did the defensive tackle know, his night wasn't over. On his way home, Vince Wilfork and his wife pulled up behind a Jeep that rolled over on Route 1 in Foxborough.
I asked her, was she okay? Can she move?
While waiting for police to arrive, Wilfork kept the woman calm.
Through football and the course of life, I learned, just try to stay poised in certain situations, and I'm pretty sure she was kind of scared.
Within minutes, state police were on scene. And what would normally take several minutes took merely seconds as the trooper held the door open and the 6'2", 325-pound tackle used one hand to pull the woman out.
He reached in there and just, like a superhero or something, pulled her right out of the vehicle.
It's actually a great story. Here's the thing that I really like about the story. He reportedly didn't say anything to anybody on the team about it. It was only after the word got out, it became reported in the media that he acknowledged and did the interviews. Most of the teammates didn't even know he did it. That shows me humility. And again, makes you respect Vince Wilfork even more. Speaking of superheroes, though, the real superheroes are the people that work in the community every day to make it better, and Sister Ann Keefe qualifies. She passed away from brain cancer at the too young age of 62 years of age. I just, all I do is pray for her and the people who are in her circle and miss her. but her circle is wide because she helps so many. She helped to start the Institute for the Practice of Nonviolence, and its executive director, Tenny Gross, who's been here before, will be here again tomorrow night to talk more about her work. She deserves it. I know where she is. Most people do too. God's taking care of her. God bless her. Your state of mind important to us. 228-1886. Call us, leave a voicemail, email at stateofmind@myritv.com. You know how to do this. And so, reaction to the story of Vinny Paz, long form last night, says RJ, I grew up watching Vinny's fights, the good, the bad. What he overcame was unbelievable, and it's a teaching moment for his daughter. Well, that's nice. We've got some plus and minus email reaction to the show last night because it's Vinny Paz. When we come back, it's Gary Sasse. Stay with us. All right, so here was the headline in Go Local Prov last week in how it was positioned that there's a little battle between the House Speaker and a very sharp guy, Mr. Sasse, and tax policy. And this is what Speaker Mattiello reportedly said. Gary Sasse is a contrarian representing a special interest, and he's quick to criticize any proposals that aren't his own. He was a State House insider for many years, like you're not, Mr. Speaker. And I can't recall anything he accomplished to move our state's economy forward. We talked about this on the radio, but your 10-second response to that journalistic pit against one another is?
I hope the discussion will focus on the evidence and facts and merits and not name-calling and personalities. There's nothing I can add. I can defend myself, but there's no need to.
Yeah, I doubt Nick would he must have had a bad day, or it's one of these kind of Kate Nagel wrote the story. Go Local Prov. I'm sure she called you. She called him, and all of a sudden, I got a hot tamale here. Whatever. Theatrics aside, you have a very substantial question about whether it is productive to make a move on Social Security taxation in Rhode Island. Give me the layman's understanding why.
Well, let me tell you, if the layman's understanding is this, the objectives are honorable. The objectives are to protect the income of people who've left the workforce, and the second objective is to get more money in the economy, give people a tax break, keep money in the economy, multiply it. So the question becomes, will it accomplish those objectives? That's the question. And the first objective is about helping people who left the workforce. It's very unequal. So if I retired with a $40,000 income, at $30,000 Social Security, $10,000 in a small, modest pension, I would get a tax break of about $40. If I retired with an income of about $200,000, $30,000 in Social Security, I would get a tax break of almost $2,000. So it's a very regressive way. And then to make the argument that somebody who is making $100,000, $150,000, $200,000 is going to stay in Rhode Island for $100 a month, it's not credible. The other issue about keeping people here, the argument is that most people go to Florida. Well, we can't compete with Florida on the tax issue because they have no income tax. So I think when you first begin to look at it, it's very aggressive. It's a tax cut for upper income people, very, very modest tax cut for people that we want to get to spend more money and give them a tax break. So it's regressive. The second issue is the most efficient way to do economic development. In 2009, I think, I chaired a commission on developing a tax strategy. And it laid out a tax strategy, and I'm going to give the Speaker and others a lot of credit. They've stuck to that. The first thing in that tax strategy was to lower the marginal rate on the income tax. That was done. The second part of the strategy was to revise the corporate tax. That was done. The third was to do something about the estate tax, and that's a work in progress. So the question comes up, if I'm going to spend 20 or 25 million, which the Speaker says this tax cut will cost, how do I get the biggest bang for the buck? And I would submit there are 3 or 4 things you could do that have a bigger economic bang for the buck. The first, if we just got rid of the estate tax, now that helps a lot fewer people, but if you got rid of the estate tax, that would keep more money in the state than this proposal would. Studies have clearly shown that. The second, the biggest issue, and I imagine you get most of your phone calls about this, is the automobile tax. If you increase the exemption from current state exemption from $500 to whatever we could afford, but you got back on track and had it to $2,000, $3,000, a lot more people would benefit from that, and it wouldn't just be age specific. There'd be a lot of people that would benefit. So that's an option. The other thing is a big economic disincentive in the state is the cost that business pays for utilities. And we saw what happened with National Grid recently. Well, manufacturers pay no tax on the energy they buy to produce their goods. you and I on our homes don't pay a tax. Small business does. If I'm a small mom and pop, I'm a commercial business or a retailer, I pay a 7% tax on the utilities I use. If you got rid of that tax, it costs the same amount of money, you're effectively cutting the tax of most businesses in the state, but the utility cost of most businesses in the state by 7%. We're not going to make our utility burdens go away, but if the state was going to do something to incentivize the economy, those are options. I'm not saying which option is better or worse, but to simply come out and say that by exempting Social Security benefits from the tax, it's the fairest way or the most economically efficient way needs to be thought about.
By far the easiest guest I have. One question per segment. But I got a good one when we come back.
I'm sorry.
No, it's great. It was perfect. It doesn't get any better than that. But when I come back, I think we need, God forbid, a broad strategy, like sustaining. And who's going to make that call? Next. All right, even though the House Speaker doesn't think you've done anything to accomplish to move this, that was a very eloquent discussion of why the Social Security tax break may not be the best choice. And then you lay out options for. But I still feel like I'm one-stop shopping, kind of like running through Ocean State Job Lot, trying to think about what the best bargain is going to be for the state. What do you sit back for a second from your analytical skills and give me a little bit of your political skill. Gina Raimondo is our new governor. Nick Mattiello really kind of drives the ship. Teresa Paiva, the Senate President, kind of goes along and tries to throw in her stuff, and then they try to negotiate with her at some juncture. We need a sustained growth program and a taxation discussion across the board that we can stick with. The nature of government is this react, piecemeal, blah. Yes?
Yeah, absolutely. We need a tax strategy.
So the one thing at a time, saying, hey, we got this done this year, next year maybe we'll get this done. What?
But you can't do all at one time. And
But where's the plan,
well,
man?
there is a plan, but what's happened this year with the legislature, they have proposals that vary from the plan. The plan was the tax strategy report that was put together by the Kachiri administration, which I chaired.
Right.
Year one, fix the income tax. Year two, fix the corporate tax. Year three, fix the estate tax. Those were strategic decisions. Couldn't afford to do more at one time. And whether you agree or disagree that those are the right cuts, most people that we consulted with, most businesses, most economists, felt those were proper improvements. Now what happens, all of a sudden, ideas start to crop up. We'll get rid of the Social Security. That was never mentioned in the economic strategy. There was another proposal that was floated by a representative to give jobs credits to businesses that create jobs, and that hasn't been thought through. So we need to make certain that we revise that strategy, we update it, because every strategy has to be updated every few years. And I think the seminal point in that, and we're going to get a real good test of how effective a governor, Gina Raimondo, is going to be. When she submits her first budget, I am very curious to see what her tax positions are in that budget, because that will set the predicate for the rest of the administration.
Well, what I don't hear, and you're right, I agree. I mean, there was your work, and there has been, but it's never been articulated from a leadership point of view that this is what we will do over a 5-year, boom, bang, 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 and bang, even though it may have happened a little bit that way and then a little bit of a stutter step. I think people need to be able to follow a bouncing ball.
Oh, I think you're absolutely right.
But the question I have about her is, I don't hear a competitive word out of her. If we don't position ourselves competitively with our neighbors, I think we're just fiddling and diddling. And I think Mattiello wants to compete with the Social Security thing or equitize the state with other states. It may not be the right thing for us.
But let me just go to digress for a second. There's a right way to do the Social Security thing. Connecticut's done it the right way. They've said we will exclude Social Security benefits for taxpayers who have income less than $60,000. That would make Mattiello's program much more fair and palatable. So there are ways to fix it up. But I think you're right. What we've not done is we've not put markers in the ground of where we expect to be at a certain point, what progress.
Why can't we just have a philosophy and make the numbers work to make the place competitive that we will meet or beat every tax standard around us? How hard is that?
But let me tell you what kind of decisions that made. I'll give you a standard. So the Tax Foundation is quoted all the time, and the Tax Foundation has said for the last decade that Rhode Island's tax climate was one of the worst in the country. I think the latest report has us 45th, we were 46th, we were 50th, we've been at the bottom feeders. Now, when you get into that report and say, okay, what can we do to make our tax system more competitive? And what do we mean by more competitive? Is it 39th? Is it 35th? Is it 25th? It's not going to be first.
I'm not trying to I'm not trying to get a ranker. I'm trying to say we're less than Mass, we're less than Connecticut, we're palatable.
But the question you have to ask is, if you want to develop a tax policy this way, we know what to do. Our income tax, things I mentioned, our corporate taxes, our income taxes are competitive. It's property tax, it's unemployment insurance taxes. I can go, it's the sales tax rate. So if you say we want to become competitive with Massachusetts, it's not subunits. We need to get the sales tax down to 16%.
Hello.
We need to do
Just
something.
look at every tax there is, and we'll be a percentage less.
You could do two things and get competitive with Massachusetts. You get the sales tax down, and you can have a decent program of funding motor vehicles to not make them as expensive as they are. We did those two things on top of what we did. Bingo.
Amen. Well executed. That is the bingo. Thanks for coming. We'll talk a lot over the course of 2015. It's going to be a very pivotal year. They always are. Have you noticed, by the way, every year is the most important year we've ever had?
As long as you're here.
Exactly. One more thing when we come back. Stay with us. So again, a remembrance of Sister Ann Keefe tomorrow night with Tenny Gross. An important conversation, not just because of her, but because of her work and Tenny. So make sure you're tuned in tomorrow. Of course, we'll reflect on what the president had to say in this constant drone on about the middle class. And then we're going to start to talk to some of the local mayors around who really have risen to a very effective level of government here in the state of Rhode Island over the last couple of years. So just a couple thoughts. We'll see you on the radio tomorrow at noon on WPRO until 3 and 7:30 tomorrow night. Right back here. Good night.